the joy of the gospel. And let me make sure I got the right page here now. He says this, the joy of evangelizing, which is our going out, which again gives us joy. That's the whole point of this document, is the more that we reach out to others, is the more that we love our neighbor, the more we go beyond ourselves to bring what we have to others, not to impose, the more joy we feel inside, and the more convinced we are of our own charism. The more it's given, the more it grows inside of us. And that's why it can never be inward looking. So he says, the joy of evangelizing always arises from grateful remembrance. And that's the importance of a celebration. That's the importance of 100 years. That's the importance of coming together annually, monthly, weekly, in different groups, to remember. He says, he continues, it is a grace when we constantly need to implore. The apostles never forgot the moment when Jesus touched their hearts. The apostles never forgot when Jesus came to them. They never forgot the moment that he stood there with the nets at the fishing port at Tiberias. They never forgot that moment. Something happened to them. And I would imagine, and I think it would be a good exercise for each one of you to remember when you met this charism. You could probably remember the day, the time, the place very vividly. It is as if it's another annunciation. And that's where the Marian side continues to come to our mind. To remember the day that you met the charism was your annunciation. Just as the day of your baptism was the announcement of Christ into your life. And to continue that task, God chose you with announcing a charism into your life. Not to take a left or right turn, but to continue that same journey with new vigor, with new zeal, to accomplish the task of your baptism. The apostles never forgot the moment when Jesus touched their hearts. It was about, and this is from the Gospel of St. John. I mean, this is the beauty of kind of going through these exercises, because you see these things we read in the Gospels and you don't take note of it. But what does St. John say? It was about 4 p.m. Together with Jesus, this remembrance makes present to us a great cloud of witnesses. So constantly in the Gospels, there's a remembrance of time. There's a remembrance when things happened. It was also with the crucifixion at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, at the 3rd hour, the 3rd watch. Remember your leaders and those who spoke to you the word of God, from Hebrews. Some of them were ordinary people who were close to us and introduced us to a life of faith. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, from the 2nd letter of Paul to Timothy. A believer is essentially someone who remembers. And so while we talk about not turning inward and getting stuck there in time, it is also important to remember who we are and where we come from, so that we can go forward. And so as this celebration is also a time to stop and to remember. It is a time to be thankful for the heroic sanctity and virtue and zeal of Father Kentenich. It is a time to clarify and to study his teachings in the spirit of the context of the charism that was born and given to him and communicated to him. It's a time to renew today, in the context of the church's needs, the evangelization of peoples. And so with that spirit of this celebration of these 100 years, a time to remember, a time to give thanks, a time to renew, it is also a time now to look forward. So there is that moment of coming together, looking at ourselves and moving forward. And if you can tell I'm struggling, there is a point here, and I think I overlooked it anyway. The Pope said that's why we have the Eucharist. The Eucharist is a time daily, at least weekly, that we stop and remember. Remember what? Remember the fact that God sent his only begotten Son to us, to live for us, to teach us, to die and rise for us. That's it. And as a priest and as a bishop, and I hope I don't offend anyone, and this is a unpaid commercial or whatever they say, look what we do to the Eucharist sometimes. How many people fight over the intention for the Mass? That's my intention. That's my Mass. How many times do we add on different kind of celebrations? And unfortunately, the bishops, in my opinion, or this is unedited. This is the edited part. No, I'm kidding. You know, this is pro this Sunday. This is against this Sunday. This is a mission Sunday. So every Sunday is something else, and we tend to overshadow the depth and the gift that's in front of us in the Eucharist. But that is the point of remembrance. And so if we only remember that this is such and such Sunday, a theme, we may tend to not listen as sharply to the readings or be as intent on the gift of the Eucharist that's there. And yet that's why it was given to us by Jesus. So that you can every Sunday or every day stop what you're doing, recollect, come together, and remember. Remember. And that is the model of remembrance for us. That's the model of remembrance of this year of celebration. Remembering the charism that's given. Remembering the person who gave. Stopping to remember. To renew. To listen again. To go deeper. And to allow that gift that you are partake in now, that you participate in, to become more a part of you. Not for yourself only, for your own personal holiness, but so that you can give it in a more profound and meaningful way. And now evangelization. We all are familiar with that word. And the charisms of the church, the new charisms in a special way. Well, let me pause there and go back. When I was studying, my own story. When I was studying theology, well, back up. I went to the seminary thinking I would become holy. That was my road to holiness. Because my brother and I, when we were children in that house in Houston with those fans going on, we used to read those little booklets of the saints. Remember the little square booklets, had picture on one side and a little story. And we'd take turns reading at night. So that kind of got into me that I wanted to be one of these saints, not knowing what. So, of course, you think, well, the seminary, obviously the way you go in the 50s and 60s was to become a priest, to be a saint. Well, don't want to scandalize our seminarians, but my first night in the seminary, I went to my room and cried. I went, oh my gosh, it's like nothing's changed. It's the way it is in the world. I thought, oh my gosh. But I really felt inside, no, you're called to be a priest. And it's almost like Jesus says, I'll be your teacher. So I began to really look for spirituality. And of course, in the 70s, the formation was not what it should be, it should have been. So I began to search in different ways. And my great aunt was a Poor Clare sister, and my grandmother was a Third Order Franciscan. So I was very familiar with charisms, not knowing the depth of that. And I thought, well, I wanted to be a diocesan priest, but maybe I'll follow one of these third orders just to have something, that gift to guide, my ministry. And then at the end of my 3 years, we were able to choose a specific theological direction. And so I chose spirituality. I thought, well, if you're going to be holy, you need spirituality. If you need spirituality, you got to study it, up here. So I studied theology, and it was through that I met the Focolare movement. I always say they found me. I didn't so much find God found me, is the way it always is, than us find them. And it was in there that you really take on that moment to say, wow, this is the way that we are to go. And so you receive this gift that you live out in your normal everyday life.